Hey guys, welcome back to Signs and Wonders. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoy the videos, please give it a like, as it does help it perform in the YouTube algorithm. Also, I'd like to give a quick shout out and thank you to my Patreons and to all those of you who have helped this channel. If this is your first time here, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you guys can stay up to date on all of my latest vids. With all that being said, let's get into it, shall we? Today is August 1st, my name is Nick, and this is your End Times Christian News. Symbolic signs in the sky. More than 125,000 lightnings strike Washington, D.C. in just 2 hours during unprecedented electrical storm. Powerful thunderstorms consolidated over the DC area Thursday evening, releasing a dramatic and memorable outburst of thunder and lightning, while also dispensing tremendous rainfall. Energized by stifling heat and humidity, it was the fourth day in a row of vigorous summer storms in some locations. Eyewitnesses described the jarring claps of thunder and the strobe-like lightning display as among the most extreme they had ever seen. The DC Lightning Mapping Array detected 126,500 instances of lightning discharge between 8 and 10 p.m. From 8:21 to 8:55 p.m., there were nearly 3,000 lightning events within 8 miles of Nationals Park, said Chris Kavajiski, a lightning expert from the Balsia Group, which operates the National Lightning Detection Network. Violent hailstorms hit Slovenia, Europe's first giant hail event in 2020. A massive supercell storm produced severe hailstorm over central Slovenia on Wednesday evening, July 29, 2020. Ice stones up to 10 centimeters in diameter left enormous damage along its path in what is now the first giant hailstorm event of 2020 in Europe. A large upper wave was moving across northern Europe while an associated diffuse cold front was extending towards the Alps. Moderate westerly winds over Slovenia created a moderate wind shear, generating environmental conditions that were conducive to support such a severe storm. The storm began over the mountainous terrain in the higher Alps, eventually spreading towards the southeast across southern Austria and the border with Slovenia. So ice stones up to 4 inches in diameter. That's massive, guys. Left mad damage everywhere in its path. The storm evolution was extremely explosive. The view into the developing towers from a distance was beyond spectacular. The cluster also generated numerous red sprites, or large-scale electrical discharges that take place high above the thunderstorm clouds. Sprites are amazing looking. Anti-Christian acts in France up 285% since 2008. A Vienna-based observatory has highlighted a sharp uptick concerning the anti-religious violence in France in the past 12 years. More recent incidents included last week's fire inside the historic non-cathedral. At the present time, the Observatory on Intolerance and Discrimination Against Christians in Europe, or the OIDACE, serves as the sole observatory in the continent that addresses the discrimination that European Christians face. That's good that they actually have an organization like that. The French government reported 275 what they call anti-Christian acts in 2008. So that is anything from targeting a church in some way with vandalism or a public Christian statue. It could be a Christian cemetery, or it could be like actual assaults against French Christians with anti-Christian biases. So if we look at the 2018 and 2019, the numbers are little over 1,000 per year. So the increase from 275 to a little over 1,000 works out to be 285% increase. That's just insane, hey guys? Regarding the underlying motive behind the attacks, Fanati said that they are often acts of vandalism with a message. They are not necessarily like graffiti where you could identify what these people want, as compared to Spain, she added. In France, we see a lot of decapitation of statues, we see the destruction of precious objects. I don't mean precious by material value, but destruction, for example, of consecrated hosts in Catholic churches, Fanati noted. There's basically nothing worse you could do in a Catholic church than destroy the consecrated host. The OIDAC executive director also believes that the attacks usually come from Islamist extremists or different radical left-leaning groups, such as Antifa, anarchists, and radical feminists. They all set their sights on churches for different reasons, she said. Yeah, I know the reason, the hatred of God. In France, we certainly have not seen any kind of far-right attacks on churches. Well, of course not. In France, I would say it's sort of the cultural leftists on the extremes, as well as the radicalized Islamists. Yeah, no surprise there, eh guys? Almost 30 million in the US didn't have enough to eat last week. Food insecurity for US households last week reached its highest reported levels since the Census Bureau started tracking the data in May, with almost 30 million Americans reporting that they didn't have enough to eat at some point in the 7 days through July 21st. In the Bureau's weekly household pulse survey, roughly 23.9 million of the 249 million respondents indicated they had sometimes not enough to eat for the week ending July 21st, while about 5.4 million indicated they had often not enough to eat. That's what it just said. The survey, which began with the week ended May 5th, was published Wednesday. The number of respondents who sometimes had insufficient food was at its highest point in the survey's 12 weeks. The number who often experienced food insufficiency was at its highest since the week ended May 26th. This follows deep recession resulting from the pandemic, which put millions of Americans out of work. Unemployed Americans have been receiving an extra $600 per week in benefits, which is set to expire at the end of July as Congress debates a new relief package. Other high-frequency data, including household pulse jobs numbers, indicate that the U.S. economic recovery may be stalling out as virus cases spike around the country and states roll back their reopening plans. Puerto Rico's power grid fails hours ahead of potential arrival of tropical storm. San Juan, Puerto Rico, a day before potential tropical storm Isaias was expected to bring rains and winds to Puerto Rico, at least 400,000 customers throughout the islands were left without power. The outage affected multiple municipalities from cities in the metropolitan areas such as San Juan and Guaynabo to the mountainous towns of Jawawa and Narjito to the coastal town of Cabo Rojo in the southwest. But even on Wednesday morning, hours before the storm was expected to be felt across the island, and people and officials prepared for its effects, an internal spat within Puerto Rico's bankrupt electric utility company dominated early headlines. Following Tuesday night's outage, executives and workers for the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority, or the PREPA, could not agree on what caused the widespread blackout, as the utility's head blamed it on internal terrorism. Okay. And called for a federal investigation. The renewed outage over the island's beleaguered electric power grid also comes after a letter from the Federal Emergency Management Agency that claimed Puerto Rico was not prepared to respond to a major event on top of a rising number of COVID-19 cases. According to Fagario Jaramillo, the most affected municipality was Caguas, with 72,000 residents left without electricity. Americans aren't making babies, and that's bad for the economy. The US could see 500,000 fewer births next year, which will have repercussions long after the pandemic is over. Cute little pandas and white rhinos aren't the only creatures that are unsuccessful at mating in captivity. The old folk wisdom tale that humans will copulate when left with nothing else to do, dubbed the blackout babies theory, surfaces regularly in the immediate aftermath of disasters, but the baby boom never materializes. The COVID-19 pandemic spawned predictions that stay-at-home orders would eventually deliver a baby bump. Yet far from having more children than usual, Americans are expecting fewer. In bedrooms across the US, couples are making decisions that, in the long run, could prove as consequential for the long-term health of our economy as those taken by policymakers in Washington. Fewer children now means fewer consumers, workers, and taxpayers for the future. In other words, a smaller economy than otherwise, though also a smaller environmental footprint, I guess, which brings its own rewards. In June, the Brookings Institute released a study predicting the US is headed for a large, lasting baby bust. Its researchers forecast there will be 300,000 to 500,000 fewer children born in the US in 2021 than there would have been absent the crisis, which amounts to a decrease of roughly 10% from 2019. What that means is the number of babies never born is likely to greatly exceed the number of Americans who've died apparently from the coronavirus, which is approaching 150,000. The effect on the population will be longer lasting as well. Many of the babies who aren't being born would have lived into the 22nd century. Alright, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and click that like button if you like the video. And as always, God bless you and your families.